Welcome to Digital Asset News. Take the top stories in cryptocurrency and digital assets and break them down into bite-sized pieces today. Got some fascinating stuff. First up, we've got the President of the United States talking about when the economy or the country itself is going to reopen, trillions in infrastructure, and the unemployment rate from Q2 to Q3 and how that's going to affect everybody. Also, Bitcoin price next stop is $23,000 as the halving approaches, and we got a couple of analysts that are going to go over that and tell us what's going to happen. And finally, Bitcoin Cash undergoes the halving event, which happened today, but it's casting shadows on miner profitability, and we'll go over that and all these stories in just a second. But first, let's take a look at the market. So here we have CoinMarketCap, as I call Binance Market Cap. If you don't know, Binance purchased CoinMarketCap for a cool $400 million. That's the report going around. Could be a little bit less, could be a little more, I'm not for sure. But this is the prices today right now. So Bitcoin holding strong at above 7,000, actually 73.37. Ethereum's at 172. Everybody's up. XRP, wow, it's up at 20 cents. Tether's Tether, Bitcoin Cash 6.55, and Bitcoin SV 17.53%. Now, if you don't know, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision by Craig Wright there, they're going to undergo a halving tomorrow. Bitcoin Cash had their halving today around noon, depending on where you're at, and Bitcoin SV will go to theirs tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what the price is going to be for Bitcoin SV right before the halving and after. If you have a prediction, put it in the comment sections below. I would love to hear where you think Bitcoin SV is actually going to go. Let's take a look at the traditional markets. We got the S&P 500. Let's do a little refresh. 26.59. Wow, look at that, up today, 27.49. Here's our 5-day, here's our 1 month, and looks like the traditional markets are going up, no problems. It's fantastic. Let's take a look at what the President of the United States says. So this is on Fox News. He was interviewed by Sean Hannity. This was about 8 hours ago or so. It's a pretty long segment. It's almost 40 minutes, but there's really just 3 parts to it that really affects, not that it doesn't affect us all of it, but there's 3 parts that really affect what's going to happen. And it was pretty much like the most important part. So there's 3 sections. One we're going to talk about is when we're going to reopen and stop all this social distancing, or stop all the lockdowns that we have in the United States. Now, I don't know where you're at, but right now in the United States, about 90% of all the territories, of all the states, of all the cities are on some form of not just social distancing, but a stay-at-home order, meaning we can't really go out anywhere except for the necessities. 10% are not, but we leave those up to the governors of the state, so whatever. And so that's the first part. Next part, we're going to talk about an infrastructure program, which is going to be $2 trillion spent. And last, we're going to talk about the unemployment rate from Q2, which is coming up, to Q3, and how that's going to affect everything. So first up, let's talk about the economy and the country opening up as far as the time frame. And don't worry, I'm going to play this at regular speed because a lot of people didn't like, or some people didn't like me going at 2x, or 1.5x actually. So let's take a listen.
The cure can't be worse than the problem. Now, at some point, we're going to get to May 1st, reopening the country. I would imagine it might be a combination of opening it up geographically. Would you consider antibody testing, temperature taking in for example, like a small geographic area like New York City with a high population of people? Obviously a greater risk. Doctors are telling me it's not a matter if it will rebound, but when it will rebound. So you don't want to get back to a situation where you are closing down the country again and the economy. So what are you thinking about the best ways, especially in like a city of New York? How do you open it up but not have a massive rebound?
Well, we're starting to look at it very, very thoroughly, and we have some great people looking at it because we want to get this country open. We have to get our country open again. This wasn't designed to have this. You crack it in half. It's no good. And we'll be open again much sooner rather than later. And we're going to be coming up with some ideas in the very near future, probably putting them out to the public, But we're going through April, as you know, April 30th. and we're going to make a decision from there. But if you look at some of these slumps, if you would call them that, or topping areas where it's topping out, it could be very well topping or getting close to topping in New York and some of the rough areas. New Jersey, Governor of New Jersey has done a terrific job. I just spoke to him. You have a lot of people have done a terrific job, but this is something we've never seen before. So I think we're reaching a level of where it's going to start coming down, where it's going to start sloping down.
Okay, so to paraphrase, everything's going to happen May 1st, hopefully. So April's pretty much shot. It is April 8th right now, so this whole month is pretty much going to be gone by. Nothing was going to change. But I will tell you this, if things do improve by May, you know what else happens in May besides the US economy hopefully starting back up? The Bitcoin halving. So imagine that. So the economy gets going again. We take it from pause to fast forward, and we try to accelerate everything as far as businesses opening up, people getting paychecks, people getting paid, everything starts to work again a little bit better, and then what comes around the corner? Bitcoin halving. That could be a good thing. It remains to be seen if that actually happens. What it's really going to come down to is, in my personal opinion, is how we can get more testing kits out, how we'll be able to combat the virus itself. Hopefully we can take a look at this. There's a antibody type of test. That's one thing. Also, for people who actually made it through the coronavirus, they are supposedly have antibodies in their system, and hopefully transferring that or transfusing that into other patients. So we'll see exactly what happens. Now, that's the first part. The second part is we need more stimulus, right? We haven't printed enough money apparently. So let's take a look at what we're going to do as far as getting everything ready, as far as jump-starting or hyper-jump-starting the economy with $2 trillion in infrastructure.
We do have tremendous stimulus, and the dollar is very strong. Our currency is very, very strong. The strongest in the world by far. It's also the biggest in the world by many, many times. It is really the only currency of the euro is there a little bit, but the euro is peanuts compared to the dollar. And we have a strong, powerful dollar. So when we go out for this, John, everybody wants to put it in. They want to invest in the dollar. They want to invest in our country. So we're paying zero interest rate. I mean, we're paying like zero. So this would be a great time to do infrastructure when you're paying just about zero interest rate. I mean, we never had anything like this. Probably won't have another chance. But we spent $7 trillion, now almost $8 trillion in the Middle East.
Okay, so let's take a look at what he's talking about. $2 trillion program to get infrastructure. And this was actually reported on another number of outlets. Here's Bloomberg. And same thing, so it's collaborated. It looks like this was actually back in March 31st, and we're looking at a week and a half later, still talking about the same thing. So this was the same thing that they did for FDR New Deal. They put everybody back to work by the government hiring and doing a lot of programs for infrastructure. So that worked back in the 20s. Let's see if we can get that to work again, dumping $2 trillion in and getting more people back to work. So that's fantastic. Now the last part here, we're going to talk about the unemployment from Q2 to Q3 and another $4 trillion package. And just notice what he says here about as far as like saving big businesses. Let's take a listen.
The second quarter unemployment numbers, GDP numbers are going to look disastrous, but you have been expressing complete confidence that it bounces back. Do you believe that bounce back is the third quarter? In other words, July, August, September?
Yeah, I think that the bounce back, I hope it's going to be fairly large. Don't forget, we're giving great stimulus here with the small businesses. We're going to save the large businesses very easily. We have the funding to save the large businesses. We really have $2.2 trillion, but we have another $4 trillion that we can use. We're going to save the large, the airplane,
And there you go. Everybody gets saved. And you get really saved if you're big businesses. So that's what's going on with United States. Now, sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds like it's awesome. We're going to, everything's going to open up on May 1st, go right back to the original way it was. We're going to get, $2 trillion in infrastructure so people can get paid. And then, of course, another 4 trillion in there. We're going to save all these big businesses and unemployment's going to go down. It's okay. Well, that sounds great, but let me give you a different side of the story. So this is from Yahoo Finance, and they've got Daryl Cronk, who's the president of Wells Fargo Investments. He lays out a couple of things. I'm a big fan of history. History kind of shows us, what was and where things will potentially go. Now, you have to look at the current situation, obviously, and try to look a little bit in the future. But history lessons are always fantastic. And here he talks about, this is just a general market history lesson as far as dips, peaks, and troughs. Let's take a listen.
The deeper the decline, the higher the bounce, and the deeper the retest is kind of the history behind it. If you go back and look all the way to 1929, we've had 13 of these waterfall declines. 9 of the 13 have retested the first or initial low and broken it. And of the 4 that didn't, 3 of those 4 actually retested the low again. So I would be careful here. I know there's some good news, and I'd love to be an optimist myself, but I think it's important to be a clear-eyed realist. We have some tough data that's coming up in front of us. I mean, we've seen the labor data. We're heading into first quarter earnings season that's going to be difficult. So I just be cautious about getting too optimistic here on this rally.
I couldn't agree more. When he starts talking about labor data, what he's talking about is unemployment rates. And unemployment is going through the roof. Just last week, we had 6.6 million people. Here is just an overview as far as unemployment rates. And you can see that from 07, pretty steady, all the way until right here, where we had an amazing amount of people filing for unemployment because there are no jobs. There are businesses being shut down all over the place, and people are losing their jobs at record numbers. So this was March 28th. I would be very curious to see what it is this week, being April 8th. I can only imagine it has only spiked even more, but I have not been able to find that data. So if anybody has that, let me know in the comment section. I would love to see it. So that was the labor data as far as mass unemployment. When he talks about earnings, what he's talking about is quarter 2, which is April, May, June, and then quarter 3, which is July, August, September. And those are going to be bottoming out because it's kind of hard to make any earnings when you, as a business, are closed and have no customers. It's very tough to do those things. So when he talks about labor data earnings, just remember that's what he's talking about. Now, let's talk about the corporate earnings, or what is going to be released very soon. And he's going to talk about that just for about a minute or so.
Assets. So just for example, we're heading into this first quarter earnings season. The consensus still has us earnings declining about 7, 8, 9%. And second quarter is about 15, 16% right now. That's way too low for what we're going to have in GDP contraction. The financial crisis didn't contract as much as what we're expecting this one to, and yet earnings dropped 40% in the financial crisis. So I think you've got some markdowns still ahead on earnings that the market hasn't been as realistic about as they should be.
The market has not been as realistic as they should be. I think that just plays over in my mind. And I've heard it not only from here, but there's other players in the game, like the CEO who built Cisco. He talks about the same thing, but he's talking about, look, it's not just going to be, 1 quarter or 2 quarters. We're looking at 9 months of economic pain. And when I see these markets just jump up, I'm like, where is this coming from? Who's paying for this? How's this happening? I know we have a stimulus package, but how long can we actually print money and make this a stimulus? But there's still a problem with that, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But you can see people or businesses like Tesla. Tesla today, they just cut salaries and they furloughed all their employees that are not essential until the end of the second quarter. That would be the end of June into July at the minimum. So all those employees are out. Excuse me. And this is Tesla. Now Tesla's big and they're going to be okay, but how do we save what America is built on? And I don't know where you're at. Again, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Australia, Middle East. I don't know where you're at, but I can tell you right now that you're probably built on a lot of small businesses. A lot of small businesses drive the economic factors. So if you can't save small businesses, what are you going to do? And in America, small business is 50% of our economic platform. And if we can't save them, we're going to be sunk. And here's the bad part, or here's the good part and bad part. The good part is the government realized that they have to save small businesses. It wasn't just the big guys. It wasn't the too big to fail people. So we have to bail out these small businesses. So they immediately passed legislation which allowed for stimulus packages. First it was 2 trillion and another 2 trillion. Now we're looking around 6 trillion. I can't even keep count. But the problem is that these programs, as good as they sound, are not being executed in the way that they should be. And it is a cluster F of just problems because you have two different main types of stimulus packages or economic recovery packages. And one of those is the EIDL, the Economic Disaster Loan, Economic Income Disaster Loan, whatever it's called, and the PPP, which is the Payment Protection Program. And those two packages are a little bit different. So the EIDL, it's really up to $10,000, and that is given to you through the SBA. And the SBA in America, Small Business Administration, that is the government-run a part of, for all small businesses. And they are overseeing that, and I filled out the form. Very easy, and I know what they want to do. They want to get money into the hands of the small businesses. However, I have friends who are also small business owners, and we haven't Not that we haven't received the check or received any types of funds, but we haven't even received a response. So I can tell you right now, I'm sure that the Small Business Administration is falling short because they are understaffed, undermanned, whatever you want to call it, and they don't have the resources to really dole out this money. And it just was a bad organization, as I can see it. So that's the one part of the EIDL, right? But there's also the Payment Protection Program, which helps out with the employees. Everybody has a small business. Not everybody, most. They have employees, and those employees depend on you to pay for their salary, which is definitely what we should do because they all do great work. So if we are closed, we cannot pay our employees. That's what the Payment Protection Program is. And that is actually run through the banks, if you can believe that. So the SBA just has the EIDL. The PPP is run through the banks. So the SBA gives you the loan for $10,000. The PPP could be $10,000 or even more, and the banks are responsible for that. The problem is banks suck. And I've talked about this, and I think that's why we're all in cryptocurrency digital assets. We just know that they do. And the problem here is that they're dragging their feet. So now the SBA is under fire because they are understaffed and they're not executing. And now we've got the SBA officials blasting the banks saying, hey, these guys aren't doing their job either because they're dragging their feet and small businesses like myself and people around me, we haven't heard anything from the banks. It's amazing. I think one of my friends actually heard back and they're just processing it. But according to Steve Mnuchin, it was supposed to be funds that day, which is laughable now that I think about it because, when I heard it, I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. And then, of course, here we are, and it's been, 4 or 5 days or so, 6 days. And it's just not going on. So this is a problem because if we want to restart the economy, we need to have that stimulus package and not just have it, lumped up in some government program sitting in some account that is not moving anything. So that's bad. Now here's where it gets even worse. And this is for if you have a mortgage or you own properties or you're into real estate or you have your own home or whatever it is, there is a program and it's a deferment program. Now that we are all going through this economic crunch, you can call up your mortgage broker or the person who holds your mortgage and say, let's say Wells Fargo. For me, it's Wells Fargo. Well, I say, Wells Fargo, I can't pay, and I need you to give me 3 months. And what they're supposed to do is say, yes, we'll give you 3 months, no big deal, and we'll put it on the back end. So, instead of like you having to pay, April, May, and June, you're just going to start up in July. And they say, no harm, no foul, right? So that's okay, and they put on the back end. So if you have a 20 or 15 year, 25, 30 year, whatever else, you'll pay 30 years plus 3 months at the very end. Great. Here's the problem. Banks and these mortgage companies suck, and what they're doing is that they're saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you 3 months slack, but on the 4th month, you owe us those 3 months, plus any kind of interest that has accrued. And they are really tightening the screws, and it really just unnerves me. So there's a gentleman that I listen to every so often. He's Meet Kevin. He's a real estate agent, real salesy type of guy, and he's entertaining. He's an entertaining guy. But he did a deep dive, and this is in 13 minutes, and he talks about exactly what I'm saying here. And he's saying how illegal it is for them to do that. And what he also showed was that the Fed, the Board of Governors, the Federal Reserve System, they put out a statement, and this was on April 7th. It just happened. Was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday. And they said, look, and I'll link in the description below. Actually, I'm gonna link it to Meet Kevin's show, because he explains it much better than I can. And all this thing says, pretty long, it pretty much just says, look, you have to act in good faith, and you can't do these bad practices which are gouging your customers. And if you do this, then the Fed, or the legal part of our government, legislative, is going to go after you for doing these types of bad practices. So if you keep doing these things, then we're going to go after you. And you cannot say to somebody, look, I know you can't pay now, so just take 3 months off, but in the 4th month you owe us everything. And if you can't pay, you know what that means? You're setting yourself up for foreclosure, which I think that's what banks want anyhow, because they can take your house on the cheap. So again, watch the Meet Kevin. He explains a little bit better. So all those things that we talked about, everything that's going on, I know it seems like a bad thing. And it is. I'll be honest with you, it is. But for all these things that are happening in the background, I just don't see how the market, traditional market and cryptocurrency, can keep going up. Now, I know Bitcoin has a halving coming up. I understand that. I totally get that. But if you look around and see what's going on, like, well, where is the economic upturn to have for people to actually put money into this? Now, I know that some will say, well, we've got a lot of people who are into this space, and they are, huge investors. And I say, yeah, there are those people, but there's a lot more retail investors number-wise, and I think that was what pushed the bull market in 2017. So if you don't have us, you can't just live on the institutional investors. You can't. Unless they all come out in droves, and they're not going to come out in droves. I think they're going to short the whole market in the next bull run, or in the next halving. That's just my opinion. All right, so let's move on, shall we? Next up, Bitcoin price. Next up, 23,000 is halving approaches. And this is always positive, right? So let's take a look. More data is flowing in, suggesting that May's block reward halving will initiate notable gains in Bitcoin's value. This latest analysis suggests that the flagship crypto will slowly move up for the rest of the year and eventually eclipse its all-time high. Analyst Bitcoin Jack has posted a graph on Twitter that examines a range of indicators on the weekly closing prices, all of which point to the impending bull run. And this is what he tweets. He said, this is our golden ratio, and we're not ready for the moon, but we're really close. And there's 40% on our estimated time of price spent below 0.5. In 2013 and 17, consolidation saw 41.57%, and all very accurate information. Very technical. Congratulations, Bitcoin Jack. Great job. And he says here, this chart examines moving averages and Fibonacci sequences of the present market and compares them to similar data from 2013 2017 bull run, which we just talked about. There is a clear parallel with much of the data. Thus, if the pattern continues, that's a big fat if. Bitcoin's price will move up for at least the next 12 months. And I can go on with the article, but I'm not. Because the question really is why did I bring this up? I just talked about nothing but negative in the last one. I brought this up because I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to look at this and go, yep, it's going to go up huge, 23,000, no problem. I don't know if the horse blinders are on full or just half for peripheral, but I just don't see how that's going to happen. Now, I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. So if you think I'm wrong, definitely sound off in the comment section below. If you think I'm right, sound off in the comment section below. I like to hear both. That's always nice. But to me, I think the TA people, I think there's some people that are just pure TA, technical analysis. And there's some people like me, we're more fundamental. We just kind of look at what's going on in the world, what kind of things are happening as far as adoption, as far as what is happening for mergers and acquisitions, the team that's around it, the stories. But I do really think that you need TAFA, technical and fundamental. Technical analysis, fundamental analysis, TAFA. And I think when you have those, you can get a real good picture. Like for this, I agree. I mean, what's his name? Crypto Jack? Bitcoin Jack. Yeah, so, this is all great information, right? And I can see it. I just don't see it's going to happen right now because of what's happening in the world. That's just me, however. But, when I hear about these things, I don't know if you guys remember this, but this was maybe a year ago. No, not a year ago. 4 months, 5 months, maybe. When China came out, first of all, China came out and said they were big on blockchain, and Bitcoin went up fat. Then China came out, it was like 3 months ago, actually, 3 or 4 months, and China said, hey, blockchain's good, but we're never going to allow Bitcoin. And Bitcoin bottomed. But during that same day, I had TA people all over the Twitterverse and the YouTubes and everywhere else going, it's not a big deal because the technical analysis has this and the Fibonacci lines and the golden and the cross and all this stuff. And I'm like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. When these big things come out, you have to look at what's going on. And that's just how I see it. Now, I could be totally wrong. Again, let me know in the comment section below. But me personally, I think we're in for a rocky ride for a little bit until we can get over this corona hump, because it's not like people are just going to go right back to work. It's not like it's just going to be a flip of a switch and then off you go. And then let's open the businesses and let's bring all the people back and let's get people in the doors. It'll happen. It's just going to take some time. And this is just a speed bump. Moving on. Last up, Bitcoin Cash undergoes halving event, casting shadow on miner profitability. And just so you know, the world's 5th largest cryptocurrency network by market cap reached block height of 630,000 at roughly 12:20 UTC on Wednesday, as today, by design, triggering the so-called halving event that reduced the network's mining reward from 12.5 Bitcoin Cash per block to 6.25. And just so everybody's aware, this is Bitcoin Cash's first halving because Bitcoin Cash was created in 2017. So here we are. The thing that is amazing to me is that I had a hard time finding this information, actually. It wasn't like readily available everywhere. It wasn't like screaming out like how Bitcoin halving is. Bitcoin Cash, the halving, I knew it was coming around this day, but I thought, it'll be talked about a lot. No, it wasn't. There was very little of it going on. So my question is this. What is going to happen to all these miners now that they have to do the same electricity, the same power, the same computers, the same everything, but they get half the pay because they go from 12.5 to 6.25. So the question was, what's happening with the hash rate and the difficulty? So let's take a look. So first things first, the Bitcoin hash rate. So you can see now the hash rate, of course, is the computational power of all the computers in the network, and we can see that it's taken, and it didn't just take a dive today, it took a dive, what is this? Oh, this is today. Haha, forget what I said. 1 week. Excuse me. 1 week, it took massive dives here and there, and it would just kind of go up and down and up and down like a big sawtooth. And then today, it took a big, huge dump, which means these miners are getting off because what's the point of sticking around, right? Well, they can just take their rigs and they can just go over to Bitcoin. It's the same type of algorithm, so why not? But let's take a look at a month, see what happened, and 3 months. So, 3 months ago, 3.0, what's it at now, 2.8? There was even a bigger dip right here, 2.55. Well, 26th of March, that makes sense. So with the hash rate going down, the difficulty should also be going down. So let's take a look. Did you see that right there? The little advertisement was supposed to pop up. Well, guess what? If you have the Brave browser like I do, it stops all that junk. So definitely get the Brave browser. Very nice. So here's the difficulty chart. Of course, it matches exactly what we would think it to be. So if you are a Bitcoin miner, yeah, you get less, but the difficulty goes down. Now, I'm not a miner. For all you miners out there, explain to me my ignorance. If you would stick around to mine Bitcoin Cash, and why? Because me personally, I'm just an outsider looking in. I would switch immediately. And that's just my thoughts. All right. That's it for today. So nothing else to talk about, really. I know it was kind of bad news, but when there's good things going on, I'll let you know. When there's bad things, I'll let you know. And I can't put lipstick on a pig every time. So it is what it is. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you got time, there's 2 more videos, hopefully a little more upbeat than that one. And just take a look on the left and right, and that is it. So thanks for listening. See you on the next one.